Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I'm here with Leon. Leon Wu is a former employee of Tesla China. He's moved on to a startup now, but we're going to talk about China and Tesla in China. Before we get into that, we'll go with my classic. Are you ready? Let's go. And then, Leon, would you please tell the audience about your background, what you did before you worked at Tesla, how you got into Tesla, and what you're doing now?
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be on your channel today. Yeah, I was working for Tesla China for almost 2 years, majorly in the job of communication across all the departments and for China's mainline communication jobs. This could be including the traditional world of the PR, the marketing. But maybe as you know that in Tesla, actually, we are not really doing the marketing job, and there's no specific marketing department. But I believe we can contribute to the Tesla sales and delivery. Yeah, so that's my major job.
Okay, and what did you do before you joined Tesla? Where'd you go to college, and did you have any jobs before you started at Tesla?
Actually, most of my experience before Tesla was in the premium brand of the auto industry, including the Mercedes-Benz, BMW. But yeah, it's majorly about the auto market. But the experience in Tesla is really unique experience for me, because for me Tesla is not a traditional automaker, or even for me he's like a high-tech company. He's really
Right.
high-tech. That's really different and standing out comparing to other brands I mentioned. I studied in UK and majored in marketing, and I kept doing this kind of job for like over 10 years.
So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is I am particularly excited about Giga Shanghai. Shanghai, the
Mm.
Tesla factory in Shanghai is the most productive factory for Tesla by a lot. I think it's the most productive car factory in the world, again, by a lot. So, what's your impression of why Tesla Shanghai is so productive, Giga Shanghai? What is it about Giga Shanghai that makes it so productive?
Yeah. You are right. I've got some figures. Like last year's productivity is like roughly 700,000 units per year, roughly, and it's really productive. You are right, and I think there could be several reasons. The most important reason is the efficiency created by all the Tesla China staff, led by Tom Zhu. I guess you might heard this name quite frequently recently.
Yes.
Yeah. He's really a great leader, and in many aspects. But in terms of efficiency, I think he really did a good job. Building up all the factory from zero to the finish of the construction under 1 year. Precisely, they are using 11 months, I think. So this is really a good efficiency to get everything ready. And secondly, I think he managed all the jobs, or all the important jobs, by himself. He's like pretend to not pretend tend to play a model role in many jobs. This is really personally, I think this is a good management style. Also, Elon, you know that he liked this kind of style, like sleeping in the factory, something like that, and this really gave a boost of rest of the stuff working in factory. Like you see, if a leader like works in the normally in the front line with everything, even some basic works, and all the rest, they got this incentive, like they should work harder, and they should perform better. So this is kind of atmosphere for me when I was in touch with some of these Giga Factory Shanghai stuff. They are really they have this intention to perform more efficiently. So they have this kind of spirit. Yeah. Yeah, I think they've got also a lot of support from Shanghai government, which is Chinese government, in terms of policy making and some facility building, and they really had a really good place. It's like in the suburb of Shanghai. You drive the car, you need a few minutes or an hour to there. The place is quiet. It's like really a park, a Tesla park that you can manage everything without disturbing from outside. So the place is also good. Yeah.
My impression was, number one, they produced 700,000 vehicles in 2021 or 2022, but also the run rate at the end of the year was possibly over 1 million vehicles a year. I don't know when you left the company, but do you have an impression about what the run rate was at the end of the year? Does it sound right that they're over 1 million a year already?
Actually, this is still their plan. I don't think they achieve this rate, but I think they have a good, well planned construction, progress. They have the phase 2 of the Gigafactory, which means that nearly in terms of the scale, you can understand in this way. They are like building Giga Shanghai number 2, or they are building actually another Giga Shanghai in terms of scale. They really want to achieve the efficiency. So perhaps you heard a lot of news that Tesla is considering, keep searching for additional sites of the factory, additional Gigafactory, either within China or in the Eastern Asia areas. But I think it's really smart. All these Tesla guys, they are really smart. The final decision is that they keep the same site, but they nearly double the scale. They call it phase 2, but actually for me, to achieve 1 million, productivity or such scale, to just like build another scale of the factory constructions next to the original Gigafactory.
Right.
So this is well prepared and potentially to afford additional models produced in China.
Do you have a sense of when phase 2 will be built?
I think will be finished this year. Definitely will be finished. Actually, it's nearly finished, and it's well prepared. Actually, this is really heavily linked to the sales target in China. Normally, they have last year, because they delivered like 500, if I remember right. Only in China, not globally.
Right. They delivered some to Europe. Right.
Yeah. But this year, they're supposed to like a 10% growth in terms of sales, and also they should do the preparations like this is purely my guess based on all the insights and the media reports. They will soon localize the new Model S, including Plaid, and the Model X. Yeah, so this is to do those preparations, because currently they only hold the Model 3 and Model Y, and the Model Y is a little bit more advanced, because in terms of the body shaping, something like that. But in future, they will gradually, upgrade Model 3 to the shape structure of Model Y. So they need the phase 2 with a more advanced construction line, something like that, including 2 additional cars to achieve the more ambitious target. Because China is still very important, if you agree, for the old Tesla.
I think China is the world's biggest vehicle market. I don't think that's even a question. China is very important for Tesla, and forget about for Tesla. The mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy and transportation. And if China is the largest country in the world, and China probably has the largest economy in the world, or is at least close to the largest economy in the world, and is growing faster than the U.S. economy, then it's really important to help to participate in converting China to electric vehicles. So I think that's important. Yes. Do you think it's possible? There's talk about a next generation vehicle platform that would be a smaller vehicle, similar maybe to a Toyota Corolla or a Toyota Yaris. Do you think that
Right.
the phase 2 factory could possibly make that vehicle rather than make SX or 3 or Y?
Okay. So this is also including some of my speculations. I don't have anything, the real insights to talk about. So in my guess, they should produce this car very soon because this project started like years ago in China. First, at the initial phase, they're supposed to work with Franz, the chief designer from Tesla.
Franz von
And
Holzhausen, yes.
yes, Franz was heavily involved in this China designed vehicle in the early years. And they should be designed for China, built from China, and it should be a very China specific car. And you mentioned that the shape, the body shape, it's highly possible it could be like a two-door hatch, for example. Sorry, four-door hatch. The four-door hatch,
Right.
the shape something like that. It could be smaller, with considerably cost deduction, something like that. And I don't think that the exterior design, interior design changed so much. Even we call it China design vehicles, but still a Tesla, And a few years ago, France was heavily involved in this, and we also hired potentially some R&D colleagues, staff, for this specific projects. But it was going really a lot for several years already. I know the R&D should take very long, but I don't think should come out in the market this year. I don't think so.
Right. No, I think it's probably 20. They'll probably start manufacturing or get close to manufacturing this year and start delivering in 2024, maybe.
Yeah, earliest 2024. This is really depending on how Elon think about the overall strategy, because I know Tesla, it should be priority, like first they should make the success, especially in US market, the Cybertruck and the Semi, for example. I know they heavily focus on the final, the product finalization. This should be the priority. So shouldn't be like this year, maybe early end of next year.
Actually, what you just mentioned, I wanted to ask you, is there a market for Cybertruck in China? And also, what do you think about the market? Let's just do Cybertruck first, and then I want to ask you about Semi. But do you think there's a market for Cybertruck in China? Is it too big? Is it too distinctive? Or is there a commercial use for it? What do you think about that?
I talked to several influencers in China here. I mean, seems like US, they also like Tesla so much. They fall in love with this brand, and they own like 3 or 4 cars. So that's insane. And they also placed this pre-order for Cybertruck.
Oh, really?
And they love it.
Yeah.
Love it. They can't wait. Some of them, they can't wait to hold this car. So they try many ways, online shopping, like Amazon, like every single way they try to even buy a model, just a model of this car, because they really love it. They can't wait. So in China, I believe this kind of group, there's a considered large scale of group Tesla fans, Tesla clubs. They accept everything about Cybertruck, same like US, but I know Cybertruck could be more popular in US market, like a mainstream. In China, it couldn't be a mainstream, this is for sure, but as a niche model, it could be like also very successful, because the price is, it's another issue.
Well, I mean, my general sense is that pickup trucks are very, like the Ford F-150 or the Chevy, Silverado, or the Ram, whatever, 1500. Those pickups are very common in the United States. I would guess they're very rare in China, or do they even exist at all?
Currently, you are right. it's really it's the niche of the niche in China, but China is also gradually open up, and we try to accept gradually a lot more models, including the pickup. There's a lot of so-called rich people, because there's a lot of people, they need this car, either in terms of the self-driving travel, or they use it in some large cities. In Beijing, Shanghai is not possible. For example, if you Google like Beijing, road in Beijing or road in Shanghai, you can see some pictures. Like in Beijing and Shanghai, it's really the traffic is a big problem.
Right.
This is not possible. This is not, but possible in some tier 2 cities.
Yeah, I think people don't know this. I think there are 50 cities in China that have more than 1 million people. There are some very, China has a very large population. And so it may be that Shanghai and Beijing, which are older cities that have old road networks, but there may be newer cities in China that are still big. I'm going to just say Chongqing for the heck of it. I don't know whether that's a particular city that would fit, but there are some cities in China that might be newer, that might have better roads that are more appropriate for Cybertruck. Does that sound possible?
Yes. Glad that you mentioned Chongqing. It's a Western city, and this is the point I just want to mention. The Western market, I mean the Western area of China in terms of a market, is really a huge market for pickup. It should be the largest market if we heavily introduce Cybertruck, because people there, they have a greater chance to drive. For example, Chongqing, there's the areas, the road, and you have a greater chance. Like the road is quite similar to US, and you have a greater chance to do several driving situation. And another point I want to add is, in future China, there's another situation that we could heavily use Cybertruck and pickup, is the commercial use.
Right.
For example, the Hubbard in Shanghai, and we need Cybertruck to do some commercial jobs like transportation. This is still a huge demand right now, and so the overall demand in China for Cybertruck is huge. And I heard about the pre-order, the deposit of the Cybertruck. I don't know the exact number, but I can see that they can't deliver until 3 years later or something like that, because they can't fulfill in terms of the quotation and the quota assigned to China. They can't fulfill all the orders to Chinese customer. So this is a great indicator that how popular it is in China. So don't worry about that. I mean, the demand is there, and I believe it's growing in the future.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so related to that, Tesla Semi looks like a very impressive vehicle. And when I researched the semi market, and I don't know how accurate this is, I read that China's market for that type of vehicle, for that large scale truck that pulls very heavy payloads, is 4 times the size of the North American market. That there's a market in North America for about 250,000 new vehicles a year. But I think China, because it's actually more industrial, there's more manufacturing, we're more service oriented, and China is more production oriented, that the market in China was actually 4 times the size. So there seems to be potentially a very large market for Tesla Semi in China. Is that kind of truck in China very different from the similar trucks in the US? We have these diesel semis in the US that are very, very large, and they carry 80,000 pounds, total curb weight, the weight of the vehicle plus the weight of the trailer, everything loaded adds up to 80,000 pounds, which is, I think, 35,000 kilograms. Do Chinese tractor trailers, that type of vehicle, do they carry that large of a payload? Are the vehicles quite that big?
Yeah, I think the China truck market is really special. In simple words, I think it's. I mean, first of all, Semi is a good car. It's really a good car. It's innovative. But in China, the truck is really complicated because majority of the truck produced here, perhaps they have uh, a large scale in terms of the loading capacity, but they owned by the Chinese government or they owned by the joint venture, and part of the joint venture is from the Chinese government, which means that this kind of specific market for Tesla is quite difficult. It's a problem. It's not easy to compare, the product features. I mean, if Semi is competitive enough, it doesn't mean that this car in China can survive well. So this is not equally, the same. So the Chinese government, they have several joint ventures, and all those joint ventures, they build the trucks, and they own the orders. They receive majority of the orders to build up new trucks, for the facilities, for the transportation, for the services you mentioned. Right. Market is so large, but I believe that like they own by specific several companies only, and this is really we have to confront this problem.
Right. They don't want competition. I think what you're saying is the government doesn't want competition in that market.
This is really a special area. This is not the passenger cars or traditional
well, but let me ask you about that. Let me ask you about that a little bit. So I think the trucks that are in China now probably run on diesel fuel, correct?
Yes, the majority of them use diesel.
And and my sense is, well, let me take a step back for a second. China is perceived by Americans as a market that is closed and difficult to enter. And Tesla's factory is the first wholly owned foreign car maker in China. And before you had to do joint ventures to start up, why do you think, and let me just tell you my theory, okay? My theory is that the Chinese government, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how rich you are, your children and grandchildren still have to breathe the air. And if the air is polluted by diesel fumes and by coal fumes and gasoline fumes, then no matter how rich you are, your children are still going to get sick from the air. So if somebody can come to the Chinese leadership and say, I can deliver you vehicles that will make your air cleaner, that might be a message that would swing. Like that wouldn't work with American politicians, because American politicians are, in my opinion, very corrupt. I'm not saying that the Chinese politicians are perfect, but American politicians are very corrupt. And where Chinese politicians don't have an election next year and they can think more long term, and they actually can think more in this way. And so my thought was, well, diesel semis, this kind of vehicle, really pollutes a lot. So if Elon can get to the same people and say, hey, listen, if we sell our semi in China, we're going to, make a much bigger impact on clean air in China, that might be persuasive to government officials. So that leads to the question, does it make sense that why did China agree to let Tesla have a wholly owned factory in China? It seems like it was such an amazing thing that they got that. What did Tesla do? What happened with the Chinese government that they allowed this in the first place?
Well, yes, like you mentioned, that in the first place, back to a few years ago, it's really a rare case in China here, for a brand, especially foreign brand, for Chinese foreign brand, big brand entering China. So normally the way we deal with it is, hey, we find a China government owned company and you guys do this joint venture thing. But Tesla is a special case. This is because several reasons you mentioned, some reasons. I think Elon and together with some of the executives in Tesla China, they made a great efforts, made this lobby to approach to Chinese government, trying to bring a very good argument of removing this joint venture and get rid of joint venture. One reason could be, creating hundreds of jobs, thousands of new supply chain chances. And in terms of the tax potential, it also feel very huge, something like that. And most importantly, strategically, Chinese government, they want to compete. They want to lead this industry in the next 10 years, especially with a competition with the US government. By the way, I heard the news related with RA tax. This is pretty much the similar policy raised by Chinese government a few years ago. But China government stopped this subsidy from this year. But the US government raised the same policy. I mean, strategically, China wants to has this EV leading role for the whole world. I think currently they achieve this target. Like I have some figures. It takes like 60% of the world whole EV market already, China, including of the production and the sales. So this is very important consideration. But air pollution, you mentioned this. Yes, this is one of the reasons. But I mean, Chinese government, they consider this strategic planning in a more priority way. They tend to lead this EV industry ahead of US, the whole US world.
Right.
So now they achieve the target. Tesla is a very important role in rolling out all these targets. I believe in the EV market, there's no other competitor yet that can play the similar role except for Tesla. So Tesla also had a very good relationship with Chinese government. I believe with not just with the central government, with the Shanghai government,
right,
with the Beijing government, with all the government officials. They had really a good relationship. Yeah.
Okay, you brought up competition, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. There's a lot of talk amongst American Tesla fans and American critics of Tesla. There's a long-standing criticism of Tesla that, oh no, the competition is coming. That sooner or later the competition is coming for Tesla. And I'm a Tesla bull, and I think Tesla is so far ahead of the competition that it's silly. But BYD, Neo Global, Xpeng, Li, I think there's a few other companies. They are making EVs. Just to be clear, my take is that I don't think electric vehicles compete against each other. I think electric vehicle companies compete together to get rid of gasoline vehicles. And I think that's if you make a good electric vehicle, it's not as good as a Tesla, but it's better than a gasoline vehicle, you will still sell it, and the gasoline vehicle will get beat out. It's not like you don't need to make a better vehicle than a Tesla in order to succeed in the EV market. You just need to be better than gas. And the comment that I saw was that the vehicles made by BYD in particular, and maybe others, are lower end of the market than Tesla vehicles. That the Model 3 and the Model Y are considered luxury vehicles, and that BYD's vehicles mostly are not considered luxury. So are there companies in China that are competing with Tesla effectively?
Well, the simple answer is, I believe no. So I fully agree with you. When I was working in Tesla, I think everybody knows, I mean, every Tesla staff knows that in terms of the competition, we don't compete. You are right. We don't compete with any other EV companies in the world, including the companies in China. But we have a mission, we have to make all these users still using gasoline to make this transfer to the EV world. This is a great mission that all of the Tesla staff knows. But back to the threat, the potential threat. I just want to mention the sales and delivery figures. the threat in China is still there. For example, BYD you mentioned. BYD has a total delivery number of nearly 1 million last year. And you know that globally, Tesla achieved like 1.3 million, right? 1.3 million delivery. This is really a threat in terms of the company performance. I'm not a financial guy, but I know in terms of the figure as a company, BYD really did a great job. They delivered so many vehicles, regardless of the positioning, something like that. They really did a good job. And this is a great number. And there's another fact that starting from Q2 last year, I think the total number of delivery vehicles from BYD has surpassed Tesla.
Yeah.
Before Q2 last year, that was never the case. I mean, only in the Chinese market. I mean, Tesla is in the EV market is always a leader in terms of the vehicle delivers numbers, especially. Right. But from Q2 last year, BYD surpassed Tesla, and until now, they largely surpassed Tesla in terms of the deliveries quarterly. So this is really great. And in terms of the positioning, you are also right. Most of the customers here, because I also had a great chance to talk to a lot of Tesla owners in China, they don't perceive BYD. They don't even consider it. Most of them came from brands like Mercedes or BMW. You know, we perceive this kind of customers like exchanging cars to Tesla in a more acceptable level, because they believe they sold their Mercedes and they bought a Tesla car. This should be the case, but not the case like, hey, I own a BYD and I own a Tesla and I want to buy a BYD. I don't believe this is the case for majority of people. So the competition in terms of segmentation is still different. But I have to say, in terms of performance, company performance, the Chinese EV companies, they are really aggressive. They're really aggressive, especially the R&D.
Right.
They insanely roll out like several new models. Like
Well, like Neo Global is producing a lot of cars. Yes. Neo is growing fast, and they have some special relationship with whichever government. They're connected to a regional government. I forget which one. And they're building some industrial park, and they produced a lot of vehicles. And are any of the other Chinese EV makers, maybe Neo, Xpeng, or Li, are they perceived also as luxury, or are they all considered less than luxury?
Oh, well, I think in Chinese market, I have to say quite a lot of people have this kind of perception. In the EV markets, is Tesla and others, and the perception is quite easy. And I have to say they don't perceive the EV market like premium or not premium. They just consider like Tesla is like just like it's a god. Like it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. It's a god because it brings everything of the EV. Everything we wish, everything we want is quite innovative. It's quite, you know, it's like an Apple. Most of the customers consider Tesla is just like Apple. So it's like no others. And Tesla, the only situation they would consider to buy a Neo car, I assume, could be like Model 3 and Model Y is kind of old model right now, because they consider to replace their car with the latest model, because we have to admit the fact that
Model Y is only like 2 years old.
For Chinese customers, they consider this is like because they sometimes they replace their cars quite frequently, like every 2 or 3 years, consider to replace their car. And Model Y really I know it's a relatively new car, but the competition is really, really huge, and it's just crazy. Like Neo, they roll out like 4 new models this year or last year. Crazy. And you can see the news when the media reports coverage includes this new car. You seldom see like the media reports say something about Model Y, because obviously there's not so much updates about this model. But for Neo, they roll out brand new cars, brand new models with new pictures. When this show up in the media reports, customer will be attracted. So this is the case in China. The competition is really huge, but Tesla still has this specific role, like higher up, comparing to other brands. But the threat is already there.
Okay. I think I wanted to ask you about this. Well, one of the concerns that a lot of people have right now is that there's some sort of demand problem in China, that maybe it's a Chinese economy, maybe it's some public health measures that were taken where there were shutdowns and things. What's your perception of the macro economy in China, the market? Are Chinese people going to be buying more cars in the next couple of years? Or are they slowing down their car purchasing?
Well, the demand is really not a problem. It's not a problem. Let me give you some facts. You probably heard news recently that Tesla China, they heavily reduced the price.
Yes.
And this is really crazy. This is really crazy because I mean crazy because Tesla is very smart. Because the beginning of January is really a special month for China. Because this is the first month that the Chinese government stopped the subsidy for the EV. So 90% of the EV makers, they just renew their website. They heavily raise the price up, and Tesla is doing really, really smartly. They draw this attention of everyone that they drop down the price. This is really a great comparison. They attract a lot of people. Like I heard that the showroom orders increased like 10x.
Wow.
Comparing to December, 10x, yes, for most of showrooms, and it's heavily crowded. It's heavily crowded in most of the showroom. Asking for these product specifications or ask for a test drive. The showroom is very crowded, so the demand is huge. Even I know that there should be like only, but the price drop is huge. It's like 50,000 RMB drop. It's really huge, and so orders, we still kept waiting, especially for Model Y long range version. Most customers has to wait until September this year for the delivery. It's insane, but that was not the case last year.
Did you know?
Last year,
did you know in the United States you can't order a long range Model 3?
Really?
We can't even order it. They took away the order button.
Wow. Wow. That's insane. That's insane, right? But in China, you can still wait. But September, it's really a long time for most of us. So this could be a great demonstration of how popular Tesla models is, because you can see there's still a huge demand. A lot of people still want to have a Tesla car, and perhaps they hesitate. Last year, they still need to compare with Tesla, with Neo, or with a BYD, perhaps with a Mercedes. But I can see that starting from this January, a lot of them, they don't hesitate. And I also heard that there are some medias, and this is quite funny. There's some influencers who in the past, they hate Tesla, they post bad things only, and January, they went to the showroom and they purchased the Tesla. So I heard this kind of story. So, this is a great story to show that how strong the demand in China for Tesla.
Awesome. Okay. Another thing I wanted to ask you about. Well, let's talk about this first. Well, we're still talking about cars, so let's talk about this. I have FSD beta on my car. Actually, I have two cars with FSD beta. My daughter drives my Model 3. My Model 3 is signed by Elon Musk, by the way. That's a nice
Oh,
little feature. I bought it from a friend of Elon. And when I got my Plaid Model X, I gave my daughter the Model 3 to drive, and I drive a Plaid Model X, and I have FSD beta on both vehicles. And FSD beta works very well, but not perfect. And my impression is that not many customers in China pay for FSD. What's your impression of the market for FSD in China now? And what about, and right, because thing is right now it doesn't work that well, right? And maybe it's not very good on Chinese roads yet. So what's your impression of the future for FSD in China, for full self-driving and the future of that?
Well, this is a very interesting story. This is a very interesting topic. The FSD in China, we can't easily say is successful or not successful. This is my personal opinion. Overall speaking, first of all, in US, I know there's a large group of people subscribe this feature, like 300,000.
Yeah, that's
roughly,
about right.
Like it's about like this kind of number. But in China, actually, we after all, we have a huge population base, so the subscription users could be like half of it in total, half of it of this figure in US in total. So the number is not that bad. This is in my opinion. First of all, the subscription number in China is not that bad. I was entitled with this FSD feature, the full FSD, due to the reason that I was a Tesla stuff, and I can be entitled with this feature for free, and I had a great chance to test it on the road, and personally, I think this is really performing well on most of the Chinese road. I almost use it every day, the full FSD. So my first answer is that function-wise, it's working in China. It's working well. It's working extremely well. And I believe this feature has also like self-learning mechanism that even for the Chinese road, they can continue to update the data, backend data, to optimize this performance on the road. So it's really performing well. The function is good, but the reason that is not, there's not so many subscribers like you imagined, is more about the road condition in China. Because in China, there's a lot of road with a complicated traffic situation that you can hardly use your FSD on the road, really. Try to imagine this. There's a traffic in Beijing, Shanghai, due to the peak hour. You can't drive your car more than 10 miles per hour. Like the speed is super low.
Yeah.
And there's a jam, and the traffic is really bad. And I don't even want to use it. So this could be one of the reasons. Another reason could be from the Chinese government, because the Chinese government currently they restrict some of the functions, like the traffic lights function.
Right.
This kind of function cannot be used. But I know this function is in my car. The FSD function in my car is the same like the FSD in your car.
Okay.
And in your daughter's car.
Because you're an employee, you got to use it.
It's just, yes, I got to use it. And it's just because for some reason, some of the functions is just temporarily disabled. It's just disabled. I know it. But this shouldn't be the case in the next 2 years, I believe. Because I heard that Chinese government, they want to promote this feature in the next few years into the next level of computation. For example, the L4, L5,
Right. Level 4,
level
level
of the
5 driving. Yes.
drivings,
Yeah.
and they also want to do this competition with the US. To be honest, they want to also make a leading role, but they gradually make this testing roads across all the cities in China, which means, for example, in Beijing, they're like on the map, this circle, they have this specific circle, and they're telling all these brands in China, you can only do your FSD here. And this circle is really a free area that you can use your full FSD functions. And this kind of circled area, we have a lot. We have nearly like 100 restricted and testing areas in China. And in the future, when this function is proved to be right, I think should be opened up to all the roads. So this is the current progress. And I can see the areas is growing and growing, and gradually more and more areas are opened up. So this is the different approach with the US. We choose a more conservative way by opening up gradually of the relative FSD functions, and all the competitors in China, they also do the same. They also have this FSD-like function, and all of us, we did this test on the circled road here in China.
Okay. Do you think there's a company in China that's doing nearly as well as Tesla for FSD? I thought Xpeng had a good self-driving feature in particular, but I don't know if you've heard of any companies that are doing well at it.
Well, yeah, Xpeng is one of them. I admit, they invest a lot of money R&D in terms of the FSD-like function. And they are based in Guangzhou. Guangzhou is also a tier 1, a large city in China. And their company, their company is based in Guangzhou, and they heavily work with the Guangzhou government. They're also very smart. They choose a certain area that they can. So here is their R&D, and next to the R&D building, they can do their testing freely. So they have really a good environment support. They can do this tests by their own, and so far they show up some videos, and I can see from the customer point of view, they can achieve the same like level of the performance like FSD. But the point is that they are choosing a different way of making this FSD function available, because Tesla is still focusing on vision-based
Tesla Vision,
technology. Yes, based on vision for sure. But Xpeng and any other manufacturers, they choose like a radar or laser.
LiDAR,
yeah. They choose a different way of achieving the target. In China, both ways they would work, but I think from the customer point of view, they're really performing well. They're really competitive in terms of this. Yeah.
Okay. And then there comes a time when we reach L4 and L5, and at some point, governments will allow Tesla or other car companies to send their cars driving around the roads with no one in them, with no human in the driver's seat. And maybe there's this future that Elon talked about called robotaxi, where instead of a regular taxi or an Uber or a Lyft, the car would not need a driver. I've heard that the self-driving feature would not be as popular in China because, let's say, wealthy people like having a driver. There's like a status to having a human driver drive your car, and to have a car that drove you that didn't have a driver would make you look poor. Does that make sense? Is that a misunderstanding of Chinese culture, or is that an accurate understanding of Chinese culture?
I have to say this is totally a wrong perception. This is totally a wrong perception. Yeah. From what I can see and what I heard, that first of all, the robot taxi is really a great potential. Perhaps is the biggest, could be the biggest market in near future, even in China. And I can tell you that there's already some brands and manufacturers that are running robot taxi.
Yeah.
In China, in Beijing, for example, Baidu is the China Google,
Right.
and they roll out like Apollo. They call it the name of Apollo. This is the name of their robot taxi product, and this product is already on road. And in Beijing, you can frequently see this this car, running on the road, and there's no driver there.
Is it popular?
And it's quite popular. It's really popular. It's really can, but so far, it's not allowed that a passenger is in a real person. A real person cannot be in the car, but the freight and goods, they could be in the car, and they do the transportation. They're still running the test. So
Right.
no real people are allowed, but it's running on the road. And there are other startup companies like Little Pony. We call it Little Pony in China. It's a cute name. I know it's called Pony, but it's like really an FSD technology based high tech company. I don't know why they call it like this, but this is also a company that they give great products that as a leading role for in terms of the robot taxi, and you can frequently see those kind of cars running on the road, and I don't think this is like only a barrier. Especially you mentioned the wealthy people. I don't see this could be a barrier in terms of mind and in terms of the perception. People accept it a lot, and they have the expectations for this kind of products in China.
Okay. One of the other things I would just mention is when I talk to particularly American women, we have Uber and Lyft are very common here, and some American women that I've talked to don't like having a human driver, especially a male driver. They feel uncomfortable with a strange man driving them around. And so the prospect to them of a self-driving car where they can get in a ride and not have to interact with a driver, they feel more comfortable with that. I honestly, personally, I mean, it doesn't bother me as much, but it seems like it would be easier to just have a self-driving car than sometimes you don't want to interact with another human. You just want to, get your ride to where you want to go. Do you think there's something similar to that in Chinese culture where you would rather have a robot drive you than interact with a human, or does that just depend on the person?
I think it's highly depending on the persons. For example, for the let's go back to the FSD topic. Even for FSD test drive, there's still a lot of people question about it. Question about if there's even a driver there when you activate the FSD and there's a driver there. And I heard there's a lot of people still question about it. They would ask the questions like, hey, do you really want to like leave your hands off? And do you really like looking at like your cell phone? They still share these concerns. So I believe also for the self-driving taxi, they have the same problem that for some kind of people, they just like conservative. They're just conservative. And
Right.
For example, including my wife and some of my friends, they don't really trust on the FSD, and they trust themselves. So it's really a question that depending on the personality. But I can see that for this topic, the good thing is that not just Tesla want to roll off this FSD. All the other competitors of the EV market, we share the same mission that we heavily developed the FSD, a self-driving technology, and we face this cross, and we have the same mission that we have to educate and we have to entrust those kind of people. So this is not just the mission from Tesla, but Tesla is for sure they can have benefits. Yeah, because FSD is the most famous technology in China.
Okay. No, it's interesting though. One of the things I've noticed, I don't know if you know this. I lived in Japan, I've traveled in Europe, I traveled in South Korea, and when we talk about other countries, we tend to talk about how different we are from some other country. And what I've noticed whenever I travel is how much we have alike, how much we share. And a lot of the things that you're saying about how people react to FSD are how my friends here react to FSD. That there people aren't, where people are start like young. The striking thing is, I have two children who are, around 20 years old. Them and their friends, they don't even think about it. They're like, okay, that's fine. The car's driving itself. But older
Yeah.
people are less likely to trust it. Younger
Yeah.
people are like, oh, okay, the car's driving itself. And then they just start looking at their phone and they don't even think about it. They just trust it almost immediately. So it really depends on the person, like you said. Um, Another thing I wanted to ask you about is Tesla Energy.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of us here who are big fans of Tesla, in America, and we talk about Tesla Megapack, Tesla Powerwall, and Tesla Solar. And Tesla Solar seems to have rolled out kind of slow. I think Tesla in the US focused more on vehicles, and they were waiting to get sufficient battery supply to start doing more Megapack, more Powerwall, and more solar. Megapack in particular seems to be starting to ramp in the United States with the Lathrop factory. Do you see a big market for Megapack and maybe comparable products from CATL, LG Chem, BYD? Do you see a big potential for that in the Chinese market, or is that something that hasn't really come up yet?
I would say this is really a difficult area. Tesla is kind of struggling in China. I know how popular it is in US, but in this kind of aspect, it's really the situation is quite different in China. The solar-based, let's say the charging station or something like that, is difficult to roll out due to the city infrastructure build up, and for some reasons we can't use that heavily in China due to the performance of the electric and due to like some specific reasons like the power limit. We can't normally use this Megapack. Similar things, same like for solar roof, and solar roof is not literally in China, in Chinese market right now. Due to the similar reasons, we have the power restrictions and all the power related business. Actually, they belong to.
I think what you're saying is, I think the word you might use is utilities. We call them utilities. The companies that sell electricity, the companies that distribute electricity, we call them utilities.
Yes. But this is a China-owned. This is a China-owned utility and company that is the business very hard to roll out. For example, we build up stations like charging stations a lot. We have like 1,500 stations already across China's countries, but in terms of the solar technology, it's really hard. It's really hard simply because that some of the facilities they say no, they can't allow you to use that kind of thing.
Right.
So this is a great technology. Yes, we all know that, but same like the truck business in China, it's not about technology. It's just about the policy, support, and this background thing.
Okay.
So I think it's really, yeah.
Okay. One other thing, and if you're not comfortable talking about this, it's fine. I see President Biden has adopted some rules that are not favorable to China recently. And I feel like there's a growing amount of friction between the US government and the Chinese government. And I'm not happy about that. I just really quick, I'll just say this, that not specific to US and China, but just around the world, countries view each other as rivals, and they end up in conflict. And it's because they view the earth as a zero-sum game, that we're fighting over the same resources. Instead of thinking instead of fighting with each other, I think we can cooperate with other countries and do more. And especially when you look at space, because I'm also a SpaceX fan. And if you look at, we could have a base on the moon and a colony on Mars, and there's so much opportunity to expand humanity into space. And And instead of fighting over a small pie on the earth, we could be working together to explore this, unlimited pie in space. So I don't like the fact that we have this competitive attitude towards other countries. We should have more of a cooperative attitude towards other countries. But unfortunately, our government, I don't blame this on the Chinese government, the United States government, I'm not saying that the Chinese government isn't responsible for this, but the United States government definitely seems to take a hostile attitude towards the Chinese government. And that was the previous president and the current president as well. Do you think that that kind of friction between the US and Chinese governments might create problems for Tesla in China?
Oh, well, I see your concern, and I mean, actually, it's just I see it in a simple way, like just the competition, like in the business world. Like if the two great brands or companies they compete with each other, each one of them for sure they want to grab the leading role, and this is like an important area. Tesla has involved in the so-called high-tech technology role. I believe it's not just about the car, it's about the technology we are talking about. There's really so many key technologies that both China and US, they want to make this leading role in the world, I believe. But this really, Tesla is really playing a special role in both countries. I believe Tesla was performing very well in terms of this topic, including Elon, because what I heard is that Elon himself, he also, played heavily between Chinese and US government, and they want to do this ambassador, like you said, to do this cooperation instead of others. So he contributes also a lot in this topic. And Tesla, I mean, for China, is still no doubt is very important for China. Like I said, this company and brand is playing a more strategic view and role with the Chinese government. They would help building up and to make the small startups in terms of the supply chain to survive. They are offering great job opportunities, and Chinese government really appreciate it. So you can see this plan of phase 2 factory, the expanding of the factory. I believe this is a good example of showing how good the relationship is between the Tesla and Chinese government. Otherwise, they will not allow this kind of construction expanding. So I would say they need each other. For me, it's not a competition. It's more about like a strategic collaboration.
Yeah.
It's like they need each other, simply need each other. And this situation would last for at least the next 5 years with a similar situation, because China still needed, because currently the EV market in China and perhaps in the world the same is still taking a small amount of percentage.
Right.
It's only roughly 3% in China now. The 3% is still a small figure, and China still wants to have all this roads. They want to see the EV, the electric vehicles on the road. So there's a long road ahead, and they really need cooperation with each other. The situation would not change at all. But in terms of the US, I mean, Tesla is more dealing with US based in America instead of China. For me, Tesla China, especially for the recent 2 years, is more about the Chinese Tesla China staff and executives. They manage the major business here. So for me, it's a weak. They give me a weak impression of the politics it's just about business. You know,
Okay.
even for Chinese government, we only talk about the business. If the business has benefits,
Right.
then let's do it. I think Elon's last visit in China was like 2020 or end of 2019. I think this is quite a long time. So yeah, due to the pandemic, he can't make himself show up in person in China. So this really gave a great opportunity, like Tom Zhu.
Yeah.
He really did a great job of leading the China team alone, and manage all the stuff within China. So this is the real feeling for me. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I've heard a lot of good things about Tom Zhu and his leadership in China. There were reports that he came to the United States and was visiting at least one of the factories and maybe both, maybe Texas and maybe Fremont. What do you think he could do to help American factories perform better?
Well, he started his job initially and primarily in terms of the factory construction job related job. So he is super good at that. And I know that both Tesla and Elon, they have ambitious target, like building like much more gigafactory. Currently, the progress I think is slightly slow and comparing to the target. And in the next few years, they're supposed to double the number of gigafactories at least in Asia and in the rest of the world. I believe this is a target because I remember that in certain financial meetings there, Elon and the management of Tesla, they mentioned the target of building the gigafactory because this is highly related to the delivery target of 20 million before 2013. 30,
2030.
sorry.
2030, yes.
2030. And we need factory. We need a lot of gigafactory.
Right.
And I think Tom is really good at that. It's really good at I think he's not only good at making the constructions, he's really good at managing resources, managing the allocations, managing all those assignments. He's really a good manager in terms of making use of the resources and making use of the time, being efficient and to build up to achieve this target. So this could be one of his major tasks, I guess, to build up a lot more gigafactories. So he can definitely do that. He's the right person to do that.
Okay. So you mentioned 2030, and I wanted to ask you about something a little different now. So what I do on my channel often is I do what I call napkin math, which is like very, very simple math to explain where I think something might be heading. So I'm gonna walk through this with you really briefly. In the United States, a standard range Model 3 costs about $47,000 and has about a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack. And that works out to about $800 a kilowatt hour in revenue for the company. Okay. And if you go through Tesla's products in the United States, most of the cars generate $800 or more per kilowatt hour. And then Megapack is closer to $500 a kilowatt hour. Powerwall is more, but a good ballpark is $800 a kilowatt hour. And one of the stated goals from Battery Day was for Tesla to produce 3 terawatt hours of batteries or products containing 3 terawatt hours of batteries in 2030. So if you take 3 terawatt hours of batteries in 2030 and you multiply that by $800 a kilowatt hour, you end up with $2.4 trillion in revenue, right?
Oh, wow, that's insane.
And right now in 2022, Tesla's revenue is going to be about 80 billion. So 2.4 trillion would be about a 30x of Tesla's current revenue. And you can say, well, they won't still get $800 a kilowatt hour because of this reason or that reason. And you could drop it to $500 a kilowatt hour and you'd still get 1.5 trillion and you'd still get about a 20x. So, so what you would follow from that is that you would expect the company to grow by 20 to 30x. you would then expect the value of the company to grow by 20 or 30x. And if you, like, I own Tesla stock, right? And it's currently trading around $120 a share. Well, if the company's going to 20x, then my stock would go from $120 to $2,400. And I would become very wealthy. Frankly, I own a lot of Tesla stock. So that kind of napkin math model, that very, very simple model. And Elon actually was funny as I was talking about this model, and like in a quarterly investor call, Elon said something that sounded like my model. You can think about
Mm-hmm.
Tesla as how many batteries do we produce and how much revenue does each kilowatt hour of batteries generate. It was like people, I was getting DMs from people, Warren, Elon's using your model. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Elon came up with that on his own. But what do you think about that kind of model, about looking at it in that way? Am I being oversimplistic? Is there something I'm missing?
Well, I actually I agree. I agree. But I'm using a slightly different model, but I believe we had a similar conclusion. Because I'm using like the delivery number of the vehicles
Yeah,
forecast like by 2030.
20 million
Uh,
vehicles, sure.
yeah, the delivery of vehicles is really is an important factor in my point of view. So this year we had last year we achieved 1.3 globally million, but this figure can have the 3x, at least a 3x before 2030,
Yeah.
and this is really not indicating just how many customers we will have. Like for example, we would have 3 million deliveries, at least 3 million deliveries by 2030. But I mean, uh, the business model grows for the electric vehicle, especially with the charging bills. You know, with this number of using, you like you said, the charging and the subscription of FSD. And also I heard that Tesla is rolling that own store, and along with the customer base and the grab of more electric vehicle customers before 2030. I mean, Tesla would earn heavily from the service related business.
Right.
Like I mentioned, the charging bills, this FSD subscription, um, and also they can buy some the games, for example, like the Apple Store. They will build up empire based on this customer base, and this business would not like simply calculate like 3x, like you said, could be 30x.
Yeah.
Because if you calculate, I'm not a financial guy, but I know this logic that growing up the customer base will bring potentially like 30x or even higher of the business benefits.
Oh, there's almost like
When
network effect. There's almost like network effects of having that big of a customer base.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can sell them other things.
Yes, they love it. People love it, especially for Tesla, because what I heard in China is that uh, they love Tesla. They love to buy everything. They love to buy everything. Not just merchandise.
Well,
I'm talking
it's
about.
like you've got the Tesla tequila on your shelf. Yeah.
Yes, yes, this is really a limited edition, for
Yeah.
example. But what I'm talking about is not just about merchandise income. It's about when you grow your fan base, um, and you have a really a potential of doing this digital business. Just similar like Apple, you can sell a lot of digital things like subscriptions, or in China you have an option to boost your acceleration, like
Right.
with
Acceleration boost.
additional,
Yes. Yes.
yes, or additional battery pack.
Right.
All of this, they are possible. So I believe one of the major reasons for Tesla China, they still in the next 10 years, they have the mission to grow this fan base, customer base heavily
Right.
in terms of delivery number. So I fully agree with you. This could be possibly true.
Okay. Um, I don't think I have anything else that I wanted to ask you. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk
Well, I do have some questions about our IRA because I'm curious about this tax subsidy policy in US. I know there's some complaints, right? There's
Yes.
complaints from the Tesla community. Maybe you can quickly have some updates about this reactions from the Tesla community, how you yourself perceive this new tax thing is not fair for Tesla world community, for Tesla owners.
It's a really simple thing that Tesla makes in the United States. It's particularly the Model Y, that Tesla makes a 5-seat version of the Model Y and it makes a 7-seat version of the Model Y. And for whatever reason, our government agency called the Internal Revenue Service decided that the 5-seat Model Y, the way that the IRA tax credit works is some vehicles get a credit for vehicles priced $55,000 or less. And some vehicles get the credit, which is a $7,500 tax credit. Some vehicles get the credit if they're up to $80,000 price. So all the Model Ys in America sell for more than $55,000. And for whatever reason, our government decided that the 5-seat version only qualifies for the $55,000 cap. So Tesla will either have to make all the vehicles, all the Model Y 7-seat, which might be a challenge. They might not have the supply chain to supply that many third rows. Or they have to come up with a version of Model Y with 5 seats that's only $55,000, which is difficult because I think the least expensive Model Y is, maybe $10,000 more than that. So So and it doesn't. The reason it's unfair is that there are similar vehicles that were given the $80,000 line. And it's almost like the reason that Model Y 5-seat doesn't qualify is because it's too efficient.
Wow.
And
that could be a ridiculous reason.
But that is I think government in general occasionally gets to what we would call perverse results. So it will probably be fixed in 3 months or 6 months. And in the meantime, what I've noticed about Tesla and what you've probably noticed about Tesla is Tesla adapts quickly. If you change the rules, Tesla will adapt to the rules.
Right.
My gut is they will just make 7-seat versions of Model Y, and they will just throw in the third row for free. Or they will charge a small extra price to buy the 7-seater, and then they'll just sell all 7-seaters. Some people I know don't want the 7-seater, but I think that's a very small minority that would be bothered by it. It's a little bit less cargo space, but it's mostly a trivial difference. It's mostly an advantage because you can carry like a couple children in the back seat. So that's the story there. I don't remember if there was a significant difference for Model 3. Model 3, the cap was expected to be $55,000, and it is $55,000. I expect Tesla will adapt very quickly and make models that fit whatever the government wants so that they get what they need out of it. And then in 3 months or 6 months or a year, they'll fix the tax credit and get it better. The other thing about the tax credit that I thought was interesting is, I don't think it's this year, but next year, it adopts rules that make it difficult if you are getting a significant number of the supply, a significant amount of the supply chain of the vehicle from countries that are not there's a list of like 12 countries that qualify as good countries. And if your supply chain is from those good countries, then you're okay. If your supply chain is from bad countries, and China is a not good country in this list, so Tesla has to, and all the other car companies have to revise their supply chain so that they get as little as possible from China and as much as possible from other places. Everything I've seen is Tesla is way ahead of all the other companies at sourcing most of its materials from the United States or Canada or Mexico, which are, quote, good countries. So I don't think so. That will be a problem, especially for other EV makers in the long term. And Tesla will Tesla just seems to adapt very quickly to whatever you throw at them. So I believe so. That's roughly it. Do you have any thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I would think that the 5-seater is a great impact because it's relatively cheap, right? Even in the US market, it should be more popular because it's relatively cheap. I think Tesla should really consider a different approach, instead of changing the product itself, like doing some lobby things. I doubt if this is possible in US that trying to, you know, in the next time of the year, trying to make the adaptations of this policy, perhaps making some changes, or perhaps to the policy itself, because from my perspective, it's really not fair. It's not fair enough. And they also, I heard the news. This news. The reason I ask this question is that there's quite a lot of media reports, even in China, about this.
Yeah.
It's really, you know, normally we don't, but this is really not fair. And people here in China, we also discuss about this. For us, some of the policies really looks like insane and ridiculous. Like,
well, so
making,
here's the other approach that Tesla can take. They could make a standard. Tesla does not sell a standard range Model Y in the United States. They only sell long range and performance Model Y. So Tesla could make a 5-seat Model Y and sell it for $55,000 or $54,900 or whatever, and it would destroy all the other car companies because the demand would be off the charts. The demand would be very, very large for a Model Y that only cost. I would probably buy one tomorrow. I would sell my Model X Plaid and I would buy a Model Y tomorrow. I think the Model Y is a great car. And you know, as Tesla is increasing production from Giga Texas, and I think they're still increasing production from Fremont, they are probably going to be able to produce a large enough volume of vehicles that they and reduce their cost structure so that they could sell a Model Y for $55,000, a standard range Model Y with, you know, more range, you know, a certain level of range that works. And it would just, they would sell every car full price, you know, and the order back, like you described, the order backlog, people have to wait till September. People would have to wait for a year to get their car. So I think that they will figure out a solution. You're correct. They will lobby for it. It will change. It will get better. The current policy does not make sense, and most likely Tesla will work with the government and get it changed, and it will take 3 months, 6 months, a year. At some point they will change it and they will make it more fair. But it's just, you know, that's just the way our government works, is they do silly things like that and you have to adapt to it. So.
Interesting. Yeah. Let's keep talking about this topics, perhaps in the future. Let's see, really changing a lot in a positive way. Yeah.
Yes, I would love to do that. Before we started recording, you didn't want to talk much about what you're doing now. Do you want to say more about what you're doing now? Do you?
Well, yeah, actually, after Tesla, I had a great chance joining a startup company. It's a longevity drink company called UDA. UDA stands for United to Defeat Aging. So this is really a great opportunity for my current situation, which I can, you know, work as former Tesla employee to give more vision to this new company. And I'd love to do this current job. So really glad you asked this question. So I enjoyed it. And this longevity drink is still open pre-order for US market. So there's a chance that even for you can try it. You can try it.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, and that's UDA.com, right?
Yeah, UDA, simply UDA.com. That is our website. Yeah.
Great. I'll put a link to that in the video description. Hey, everyone. I want to thank Leon for coming on. Before we wrap, I just want to say, please check out my other videos. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please support me on Locals on Patreon or as a YouTube channel member. And thanks everybody so much for watching. And thank you, Leon, for coming on.